Yet Baba Vanga, the blind mystic of the Balkans, spoke of a prophecy that was different from all others. She described a nation that would not receive a warning at all. There would be no earthquake beforehand, no thunder in the sky, and no strange winds. Instead, she spoke of a sudden silence, followed by a complete disappearance. She described it as if the earth would simply open up, swallow what was there, and close again, leaving nothing behind but memory. This vision was so strange that for many years people assumed it was only a metaphor. How could an entire nation vanish in one night? But as time has gone on, and as modern science has revealed more about geology, rising seas, and the fragility of our coasts, her words have begun to sound less like poetry and more like a genuine warning of something we may yet witness. She said, "The world will forget a flag because the ground will no longer hold it." That statement became one of the most repeated lines linked to her, and one of the most mysterious. Baba Vanga never used names or specific maps when speaking of the future. Instead, she spoke in symbols, images, and feelings. She once described it in this way: "It will be a place where water rises from below, not falls from above. The land will devour its own, and the map will change overnight. There will be no enemy, no warning, only silence." For many, this sounded like a riddle, but for those who study natural disasters, it is actually very close to the scientific idea of land subsidence and soil liquefaction. These are processes where the ground itself collapses or turns to liquid, often after being saturated by water or disturbed by underground pressure. In such cases, buildings, roads, and entire neighborhoods can sink without any chance of survival. Modern science has already recorded similar events, though on smaller scales. In many parts of the world, cities are slowly sinking. The reasons are different in each place. Some cities are sinking because of rising seas. Some are collapsing due to the overuse of underground water, leaving empty spaces that cause the surface to fall in. Others are affected by fault lines and earthquakes. Nations like Indonesia, Italy, Bangladesh, and the United States have already reported cities losing ground inch by inch every year. In Jakarta, Indonesia, the land in some districts is sinking by more than 10 centimeters each year, forcing the government to begin moving the capital to a different island altogether. In Louisiana in the United States, certain areas of New Orleans are sinking as well, making them highly vulnerable to hurricanes and floods. But Baba Vanga's vision was not about a slow process. She warned of something much more sudden, a single event that could redraw the map of the world overnight. She rarely gave specific years, but fragments linked to her prophecies suggest that the mid-2020s would hold one of these events. In an account recorded in the late 1980s, she described something even more cryptic: a month with a salty taste, but no tears, a city that falls without war, a country that sinks without a fight. As the earth closes its mouth before dawn, researchers have debated what that might mean, but many think it could point to a coastal nation, vulnerable to rising water from beneath, or to a seismic collapse in a region of hidden weakness. At the same time, scientists today are observing things that echo her warnings. Submarine volcanic activity is increasing in several regions. New fault lines have been shifting in ways they did not expect. Coastal soil in some cities is behaving like quicksand. Engineers warn of cascading failures, where roads, bridges, and buildings all collapse together when the ground gives way. For scientists, these are seen as compound risks. For Baba Vanga, it was a spiritual correctional way of nature balancing itself after too much human arrogance. She always said that disasters were not just random events, but a mirror of human mistakes, greed, and blindness to the signs given by the earth. According to those who studied her words, the nation that would vanish overnight would meet 3 important criteria. First, the collapse would be connected to water rising from underground pressurized aquifers, hidden reservoirs, or even submarine volcanic forces under the sea. Second, the affected country would include a capital city or a major maritime port, described as a mouth that feeds ships. Third, it would be a place already showing signs of weakness, though most people ignore them. With these clues, researchers often narrow the possible candidates to 5 nations: Indonesia, Japan, the Netherlands, Bangladesh, and parts of the United States, especially coastal states like Louisiana or California. All of these regions face abnormal sinking, seismic pressure, or coastal collapse. For Indonesia, the city of Jakarta is already known as one of the fastest sinking cities in the world. For Japan, earthquakes and tsunamis remain constant threats. especially with nuclear plants placed along risky coasts. The Netherlands, much of which lies below sea level, depends entirely on walls and dams to keep the sea out. Bangladesh is one of the lowest lying nations on Earth, with millions at risk from flooding. And in the United States, New Orleans and parts of California face constant warnings of catastrophic failure if the wrong event strikes. However, more recently, attention has shifted to another location, Turkey. In 2025, studies of the Caspian Sea and the Salian Basin reported unusual stresses beneath Turkey's southern coast. This is a region connected to major faults that have been strangely quiet for too long. Some researchers wondered if this silence is dangerous, and if it could mean that pressure is building for a massive event. Baba Vanga herself reportedly spoke of the eagle flying overhead and finding nowhere to land. Some interpret this as a reference to the United States, the eagle being its national symbol, while others think it may be a wider symbol for global powers that appear strong, but are weakened by fragile coasts. While the world is focused on wars, politics, and technology, there is a hidden danger beneath our feet. In Jakarta, in Venice, in New Orleans, in Bangladesh, scientists are recording faster rates of sinking than ever before. In some areas of Jakarta, land drops by 10 centimeters per year. In Venice, the city struggles against tides that creep higher each year. In Louisiana, experts have long warned that one strong hurricane or one quake could put entire parts of the state underwater within hours. Governments no longer talk about preventing these events. Instead, they talk about surviving them. This alone shows how real the danger has become. It is here that Baba Vanga's words return with eerie strength. A flag will cease to exist, not through conquest, but through collapse. The sea will keep the colors, but not the people. She described an ending not of war, but of nature reclaiming what was taken. Today, 5 nations stand close to that line: Bangladesh, the Netherlands, Indonesia, the Maldives, and parts of the United States. If even one of them were to collapse suddenly, the impact would not only be physical, but political, economic, and spiritual. The loss of a country would shock the entire world. Borders would change, millions would become refugees, and global systems would tremble. For Baba Vanga, this kind of event would mark the beginning of a larger shift. She believed that when the earth forces such a change, it is not only a disaster, but a lesson. She once said, "The earth cries before it breaks, but they dance to the rhythm of the city." Her point was that human arrogance blinds people to warnings. In Miami, luxury towers rise even as the coast erodes. In Venice, tourists walk on fragile stones as the city sinks. In Japan, nuclear plants were built in seismic danger zones. All these choices reflect ignorance of warnings that were already clear. For her, ignoring these signs was not just foolishness, it was arrogance against nature. In 2025, new reports have already begun to show strange activity, anomalous coastal noises, unusual tides, and unexplained heat patterns have been reported. In fault zones, in the Cascadia subduction zone, scientists have recorded slow tremors that could mean a massive quake is building. In the Andaman Sea, strange glowing waters appeared before a quake, believed to be bioluminescence stirred by unusual movements. Fishermen in Turkey, Greece, and Sri Lanka have told of currents moving in unnatural directions. All of these signs echo the kind of hidden danger Baba Vanga spoke about in some of her notes from the early 1990s. One chilling line stands out: "The earth reclaims what was taken from her without justice. Lands raised on broken promises will split. The sea does not forget." These words suggest not only a geological meaning, but also a moral one.